How's everyone doing tonight? I said, how's everyone doing tonight? So anyways, good evening and thank you so much for coming out. Can we give a round of applause to Catherine for getting the weather straight? Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you very much. Before we get into our real presentation tonight, I have a couple of updates I'd like to share with you. Some of you who follow our Market Outlook videos that we do on YouTube might remember about a year ago that I had talked about the rules regarding public communications for investment advisors, where public things like this had recently changed dramatically. And the rules that govern what I can and cannot say in a public forum are very different than they have been in years past. And these rules, in my view, have sadly become so restrictive that it's essentially impossible for me to share with you a personal opinion. And you might imagine this distresses me greatly because I'm pretty opinionated. But I can't, under these rules, I can't discuss politics. I can't talk about economic policy or even mention a political figure's name without triggering a whole bunch of compliance problems. The only way we can get around this, unfortunately, is to no longer make those video presentations on YouTube public. In fact, our presentation tonight technically would not be compliant because I'm going to be pretty opinionated. And I would imagine that you would expect your financial advisor to have an opinion. I would imagine you would want your financial advisor to tell you what they think. Isn't that why you hire them? So for tonight, we've made a little deal with our compliance department, where as long as we don't make this video public, you see our friends from First Light Videography, same as always here, making these videos for us. As long as we don't make the video public, they will allow our presentation tonight. But going forward, I'm afraid that content that contains an opinion or discusses politics or economic policy can only be accessed by private link from here on out. So once the video tonight is finished, we'll make that private link available to you. But for those of you who'd followed our regular market outlooks we do every few months, I'm sorry to say we have to discontinue those based on the new rules. And times are changing. Regulations are becoming tighter and more challenging. Personally, I think we are the most highly regulated industry, second only to nuclear power. So I'll do my best to share my opinion. I'll continue to tell you what I think is going on. I just can't publish it or make it public. We'll find new ways to get it done, though. Oh well. We also have additional regulations surrounding the fiduciary rule. And this is the rule that regulates retail investment professionals such as myself. We always have to act in the best interests of our client. We believe we've always acted in the best interests of our client. So this really boils down to documentation that we are doing so. That documentation is becoming more and more challenging. Mostly it centers around transparency regarding management fees. You might be surprised to know this, but we are a for-profit business. Shocking, I know. Generally, we earn about 1% per year to manage investment accounts, and the fiduciary rule requires us, where appropriate, to be sure that the fee is transparent on your statement. Recently, there's been a push to be more in line with this rule, and some of you may have already been contacted to enhance your accounts such that all the fees that we have are transparent on your statement. Likely going forward, we're going to be doing more of this. I'd like to introduce to you one of our summer interns, Sharetha. There she is. Sharetha is working in our wealth management department and new accounts department, and will be contacting clients to assist them with this transition to make your fees more transparent and in line with Reg BI. If you receive a call or an email from Sharetha, please help us out as best you can to respond to her. This is a regulatory priority, so please help us to help you with this. And while we're here, I'd like to introduce you to some other new members of the team. You might have seen some new faces while you're coming in. Let's start out with Abby Rose. Abby Rose is our summer intern from last year, back this year for more punishment, I mean fun. Jim Stockman. recently joined us as an advisor. He has a wealth of experience as an annuity wholesaler for many, many years in the financial industry. Gary Sheswick recently joined us as a Power of Zero financial advisor. Mark Crone, here he is working on passing his exams to join us as an advisor. And Lucia Schubert is here too. Lucia, say hi, our resident CPA. Woo, Lucia! You know, and some of you have asked if I plan to retire. I don't know. I suppose eventually. I kind of like what I do. It's not that hard, but I like what I do. It's not terribly difficult. And before I were ever to leave this, I need to ensure the survival of the empire first. But eventually and probably, and these are some of the folks that would help us transition. I would like to see Vaylark Financial Services continue into the future. Frankly, I would like to see Vaylark Financial last forever. We do have plans to downsize our Hartford office soon. Our lease is up in a couple of years. And I'd like to open several satellite offices around the state. And these are likely the folks that will help us get to that place. So thank you, guys. Finally, can we give a big thank you to our regular team for work on making this dinner happen? Catherine, Emily, Eileen. And these are the folks that make this event and everything else happen every single day. And I know we could not do this event or frankly anything else that we do without their support. So thank you again, ladies. Appreciate you all. Right then, with that in mind, in keeping with our usual traditions, first up in the furthest traveled department, who has traveled the furthest to be with us here tonight, all the way from Spring Hill, Florida, is Susan Zion. Woohoo! Second in the tradition of measuring market performance from client dinner to client dinner, last year when we hosted this dinner over at the Bond Ballroom in downtown Hartford, the Dow was roughly at 39,000. And today we are roughly at 44.5, so up nicely a little. And many of you have been wondering about current events, tariffs, international conflicts, the big beautiful bill, interest rate changes, and their potential impact on everything that is important to us financially. And I know the question on everyone's mind is what will happen next? Will the markets be higher next year? I don't know. I hope so. Will the big beautiful bill be a good thing or a bad thing? Gosh, I hope it won't be a bad thing, but I'm not sure yet. Will interest rates drop this year? I hope so. I'm not sure yet, though. I think they will. So what I do know for the moment is the markets don't seem to be overly concerned about politics. I'm happy to see that there's been some record new highs recently and that the markets are a little better than last year. This is good. I believe that there are policy developments in place out there that make me optimistic for our investments going forward. One of the analysts that we follow suggests Dow 50,000 not too long from now. And I hear, wow, I know that sounds crazy, but when you think about it, that's only about 5,000 away from where we are right now. And we were 5,000 before last year at the client dinner. We've gone 5,000 from where we were last client dinner to today. So it's very conceivable that we could get to that level. It's possible. I'd like to say we should probably continue to be invested. I think that's probably best. But if you've been following my market commentary for the last few years, you know that I'm less and less worried about the near term and more worried about the slightly longer term. I wish I had time to talk about everything that is on my mind and everything that's going on these days and everything you're thinking about. But if we did, we'd be here all night. Find me later tonight. If there's a topic you want to go into, I'm happy to digest that. But tonight I want to focus on one topic in particular, and that is national debt and deficit spending. Depending on who you ask, the big beautiful bill will either lead to economic prosperity and wonderfulness around, or the biggest pork spending and largest debt limit increase in the history of our nation. Lately I've been reading a book called Trumponomics by Moore and Laffer, and it's an interesting insight into the thinking of this administration. And Trumponomics, the whole philosophy of it, focuses on growth above all else. Trumponomics suggests we will grow our way out of our fiscal problems. And by the way, let's just be clear that when Trump is talking about the biggest tax cut ever, what he's really talking about is preserving the tax cuts that went into play in 2017 that were due to expire at the end of this year. It's not an additional tax cut. Is that growthy? I guess. But probably it's no more growthy than current because all that's happening is taxes are staying the same. For those of you who are following the power of zero philosophy, you know we've talked about current tax rates are some of the lowest they have ever been in the history of mankind. And by the way, if you haven't read Power of Zero, I would encourage you to pick up a complimentary copy over at the front desk on your way out, and also David McKnight's new book, The Guru Gap, both very good. But the big beautiful bill will make these tax cuts permanent. So maybe we've bought a little more time to get our taxes cleaned up a bit, at least until someone changes them again. Because what happens when the next president or the next Congress realizes how bad our national debt really is? The idea of keeping taxes low is that when tax rates are lower, people settle up their tax debt through Roth conversions or onshoring of assets. You know, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that when tax rates are low, revenues from taxes actually go up because people accelerate taxation through Roth conversions and distributions. So with the continuation of the low tax rates, basically everything continues to be on sale. And this is why I'm such a strong advocate of the power of zero, Roth conversions, tax shelters, and more. The idea is consider paying what you already owe. We owe it, we just do. Our IRAs and 401ks are tax deferred, not tax forgiven. We owe it. Maybe we should settle up our taxes while everything is on sale before it becomes a bigger problem later on. And I've said repeatedly, I believe we will get more results by managing taxes in the time to come than we will by managing investments. It's that powerful. My belief and the belief of many others, including David Walker, in his book, Come Back America. David Walker is the former comptroller of the United States, basically the CPA for our nation. He suggests that taxes have to double in the next bunch of years to reduce the national debt and the commitments, the spending commitments that we have already made. Much of the resistance to the big beautiful bill was from people like Elon Musk, Rand Paul, because they claim that spending goes up in this bill, not down, and that the big beautiful bill will add $5 trillion to the $37 trillion of national debt we already have. Trump and Secretary Bisson say we will grow our way out of this. Others are not so sure. But more and more people are coming to believe that we are quickly running out of time to get this fixed. And P.S., by the way, so far we're only talking about America's debt. When you talk about the rest of the world is drowning in an eye-watering $324 trillion of total debt. And in your handouts, there's a chart, actually. I can't remember, I think we called it Fun Facts for tonight. It will show you the national debt clock. And if you want, just Google national debt clock. It's a fun little piece, and it shows you what is going on with national debt. And debt is becoming a bigger problem every single day. Google it, or don't. Might make you ill. Recently, our good friend and guru and mentor Ray Dalio, author of books like The Big Debt Crisis, The Changing World Order, you know, he's a smart thinking guy, writes a lot of stuff. I follow his things. As you may know, he published a new book recently. And Ray Dalio is the former owner or founder, I should say, of one of the largest hedge funds out there, Bridgewater Associates. In 2022, he retired to write and use his research capabilities to examine the rise and fall of civilizations over centuries. We're talking the Chinese Empire, the Roman Empire, the Ottomans, and has identified trends that seem to occur over and over and over again throughout history. His new book just came out last month. It's called How Countries Go Broke. Now, why would you imagine he releases a book with that title right about now? Mr. Dalio suggests that big debt cycles have always worked in universally consistent ways that are not always understood, but probably should be. And he suggests that we are in a late-stage debt cycle right now that will cause us some big problems if we don't start dealing with it. Long-term debt cycles last roughly one lifetime, give or take 80 years, give or take another 25 years plus or minus on that. And because these are long-term debt cycles, they are often not well understood. People don't often see the big picture. They might be biased against talking about it because debt problems are, it reduces the spending ability that debt gives them. And as long as it's someone else's problem, they don't often worry about how it will be paid back. It seems like there isn't a debt ceiling increase that Congress doesn't like to use up. Some of you might have been in our Power of Zero dinner last January at the Capitol Grill. And you might remember a little video clip I played from Senator Lee of Utah. And he was just coming out of the budget reconciliation negotiations where they just passed the previous debt ceiling increase. And he talked about that they blew a $200 billion hole in the Social Security Trust Fund. He said, I get it. People like to spend money on stuff. But he also said, okay, it's 2025, it's time we need to get to work. I'm not sure if they're working in the right direction yet. Because, debt is a stimulus. It creates purchasing power, so people want more of it. This debt leads to increase over time, which adds to the long-term debt cycle, which ends when it becomes unsustainable. Recently, how often have we been hearing the term unsustainable in the news recently? It's also true there have been many warnings in the past about debt crises that haven't yet materialized. Mr. Dalio believes and writes in his new book that it is dangerously negligent to assume that this time will be different. He believes we may be heading into a case where governments and banks could go broke in ways that we have seen hundreds of times before in various civilizations, including the Chinese, the Roman Empire, and more. You may have heard of the recent downgrades of United States debt by companies like Moody's and S&P and other agencies. These agencies are saying they are concerned about the ability of the United States to meet our debt obligations. And this has never happened before, and it's a pretty strong signal. Depending on who you ask, we currently spend between 13 and 25 cents of every tax dollar collected on interest on our national debt. That's more than we spend on national defense. We spend about 75% of every tax dollar collected on mandatory spending, including Social Security and Medicaid, and the interest. So what does all of this mean for us right now? Currently, Mr. Dalio notes that we have a very large United States debt, and he judges the long-term debt risk to be very high, because the projected levels of existing and new debt are the highest ever, and big rollover risks lie ahead. Rollover risks mean that old debt comes due and has to be refinanced at the new current higher interest rates. He judges the U.S. situation to be nearing the point of no return. And David Walker, U.S. Comptroller, and many others have been warning about crossing the point of no return for many years. Dalio states that the budget deficit, or spending deficit, needs to be at roughly 3% of GDP. Right now it's twice that, at about 6% of GDP. And you can do this in two ways. You can cut spending, or you can increase economic activity. Either will work. Both would be best. Trumponomics suggests that we will accelerate GDP through growth and investments in our country. And we'll grow our way out of this. And no doubt, there have been sizable new investments that have come in under this administration. For instance, United Arab Emirates, 1.4 trillion. Saudi Arabia, 600 billion. Hyundai, 20 billion. Apple, 500 billion. Nvidia, 100 billion. SoftBank, 100 billion. Taiwan Semi, 100 billion. Johnson & Johnson, 55 billion. On and on and on. But it will take a few years for us to see the impact of that in our economy. Will it come fast enough? I don't know. On the cut side, Mr. Dalio suggests the best way we can cut is in three important ways. We can do spending cuts, we can do tax rate increases, or we can reduce interest rates, with interest rate cuts being the most impactful. For interest rates, so far, the Feds have not done anything. Mr. Trump says they're always late. He's repeatedly suggested that rates should be cut now. Mr. Dalio seems to agree, and that would be beneficial, but so far the Feds have been yet to do so, although they're signaling potentially 2 cuts by the end of this year. Ironically, the biggest influence on government debt is interest rates, not Congress, not taxes. The lower the interest rate, the lower the payments on our national debt. And that's partly why Trump is so hot on getting interest rates reduced. Second way to help is to raise taxes, but how effective this is can be debated, since plenty of research suggests that taxes actually increase when rates go down. Simply because if you pay less in taxes, or if taxes are on sale, you accelerate your tax debt, or you do economic activity, you expand your business, but it's tough to sell a tax rate increase, or cut, excuse me. It's easier to say tax the rich more. Which, by the way, if you walk down the street and talk to people and say, who do you think is rich? That sits squarely in the 22 to 24% tax bracket. That's us. That's you, your neighbor, me, that guy, that's us. They consider us the rich. In the big, beautiful bill, spending cuts are the sticking point. Well, DOGE has done a nice job of cutting. Rand Paul and others are concerned it's not enough cuts, and that may be true. Here's a really interesting point to put this in perspective. DOGE, Elon, that whole crew, they have saved each individual taxpayer about $4,800 in savings. That's good. I like that. That's good. But that doesn't do too much against the $323,000 of national debt for each individual taxpayer we already have. We have a long way to go. And according to Trumponomics, growth is everything. The faster the economic growth is, that's a necessity for America to get out of our socio-economic problems. This is a pillar of Trumponomics. The right way to examine tax policy is to cut taxes to increase growth. To paraphrase legendary football coach Vince Lombardi, growth ain't everything, it's the only thing. So listen, I know there's a lot going on, and that our nation has some fiscal challenges to overcome. I think we can also agree, if we don't start getting ahead of this, if we don't stop kicking the can down the road, we're going to have some serious problems in the not too distant future. In my opinion, we are running out of time. I honestly don't know how our country is going to fix it. I also don't pretend that I could possibly understand all the factors that might be involved, but I read a lot. I pay attention, I study, maybe that's worth something. And I'm just sharing with you what I've learned and some of the takeaways that I've seen. In the end, I've said it 100 times, 1,000 times, I can't save the world. All I can do is try to save one client at a time. And that's why I'm glad that you are here tonight. I'm glad that we're talking. I want to reinforce these strategies that I think can probably benefit us all. I believe that taking advantage of low current tax rates and doing Roth conversions is probably a good thing. In a perfect world, every dollar you have would be in a Roth or a LERP. So everything that's not a Roth or a LERP, we probably want to accelerate the process of burning it down, closing it down, paying our taxes, and getting to a tax-free world. Imagine if everything you had was tax-free and you are in the zero tax bracket. Now if taxes double, who cares? Twice zero is still zero. So that's the direction we're trying to angle clients to work towards. We believe that taking advantage of the current tax rates is a good idea. Roth conversions are a good idea. Risk mitigated investments are probably a good idea. I think we should be fully invested, but I think we should have some safety valves in there just in case things go south on us, because it's starting to look like we're running out of time. And if you think these are good ideas, then let's talk some more. And this is why we hold these events, so we can talk to each other. I said a million times, it's one thing to meet with your financial advisor at the kitchen table. It's another thing to meet like this with 200 other clients that are just like you. They have the same story. They have the same questions. They have the same concerns. Talk to each other. Find out what your table mates are doing. Interact with others and see if we can learn from all of the smarts and intelligence we have at this place today. We think this is an important part of the experience of working with us, and I hope you will join us all in a thoughtful and meaningful discussion tonight. And as always, thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for your continued confidence in the work that we do. Thank you. Enjoy. Thanks so much.